All right, there we go. How's everyone doing today? Super excited to jump in and do this webinar. Um, Looks like, yeah, we're about 2 minutes past, so we'll actually go ahead and get started right away. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. As we go through this, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're happy to answer questions as we go along, but we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. Um, Yeah, like I mentioned, super excited. We've got this new partnership with GIS WebTech, and we're going to be going through our platforms today, showing how these two tools work together. And you're going to get a first glance here at the Guru product from GIS WebTech, where you can kind of see how to utilize it, how they run reports in it, and what it can do for your organization. Um, First off, I want to do some quick introductions. My name is Nathan Foss. I work here at Lightcast. I've been with the company since 2019, or 2018, actually, I believe. So I've been around for a little while. With me today, I also have Ron. And Ron, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for having me. I won't read this text on the slide. I'm Ron Bertese. I am a co-founder and CEO of GIS WebTech. In fact, let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. I'll introduce the company if that's okay. Nathan, let me do that.
Yeah, I think
Oops.
yeah, sorry, the next one is us, and then we'll
Yeah,
get to
I had
your
the order
company
wrong.
right after
Sorry.
this. You're fine. Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about our new expanded partnership. But first, I wanted to reiterate a couple quick things about Lightcast. As you guys probably already know, Lightcast, we're a labor market analytics data company. And so we're utilizing this traditional labor market data that we're pulling from the government sources, as well as the real time labor market sources. So, the profile analytics and the job postings. And we're working with a variety of markets from government, education, and even the private companies to really help people make data informed decisions, better understand what's going on in your region, what's happening with your workforce, and assisting you in attracting new businesses or helping your current businesses or working with your workforce. And so here's a couple of the key ways that we work with our clients. A lot of these you're probably already familiar with. But the one that we're going to be focusing on most today is the business attraction side of things. Really being able to identify where are your strengths in your region in terms of workforce, in terms of what fits well into your area via the industry side of things or the supply chain. And Ron's going to touch on, from the guru standpoint, how you can really start to identify what some of these things look like in your region based on a drive time from a specific property or anything like that. So the tool we'll be looking at from the Lightcast side is going to be our developer tool. A lot of you may already be familiar with this. Some of you may use Analyst, which is actually very, very similar to the developer tool. They're both designed to be able to look at this, workforce and industry data. But with that, I'll pass it over here to Ron to talk a little bit more about GIS WebTech, their company, and their tool.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we started this business in 2016. We launched our first app in 2017. And the business really began to take off based on the strength of the technology at that point. We've grown from 5 customers then to over 240 today. So really rapid growth, all based on the strength of that technology leadership. Our company is the only certified economic developer. I'm sorry, certified Esri partner serving economic development. That's always a mouthful for me. And that means that our app is the only app built natively on the Esri platform. It creates a whole bunch of advantages. So we've really had a record that's unmatched for innovation over the intervening years since we launched our first technology in 2017, including completely replacing what was then the most advanced app available 2 years ago with the current app, Guru. So in other words, we don't keep an old technology around by bolting things onto it as technology evolves. Instead, we build whole new apps. So I'm going to go ahead and click forward again one slide. Today, we're going to show you a little bit about Guru. This is our flagship online site selection technology product. It's the most advanced app ever built for online site selection. Because this app is built natively on the Esri platform, it includes real-time access to the entire Esri demographic dataset. the only technology that does. And that data set includes not just traditional census driven data, but a whole wealth of business and economic data as well. And the Esri data set has been shown to be the most accurate demographic data in independent studies. Conversely, on the workforce side, through our partnership with Lightcast, we integrate the most accurate workforce data as well. So you really get the best of both worlds, the most accurate demographic data and the most accurate workforce data. We'll talk a little bit more about that partnership today. And as I'll show you today, that the technology really is unmatched in terms of the way it facilitates your work, including supporting entire workflows that are critical for economic development, particularly in business attraction. As Nathan said, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And importantly, this app, because it's the newest and most advanced available, it was designed to host the features that it includes. It's not 10 years old with feature after feature bolted on, clogging up the user interface, creating confusing navigation, and slowing performance. It's the latest available, purpose built for what it does today. Okay, so what I'd love to do is talk to you a little bit about how Guru supports these major workflows. And we'll talk about three things: property enrichment, proposal enrichment, and campaign enrichment. What are those? Well, property enrichment allows you to take advantage of the latest technology to stage your properties. You can configure them such that they showcase each property's unique assets. You can bring those property use cases to life for users who come to your website, click on the property, and also include these use cases in outbound materials. And that leads us to the second workflow: proposal enrichment. With all of the features in Guru, it's a one-stop platform for you to collaborate with partners, whether they're inside or outside your organization, bring your proposals to life, including your RFI responses, by including enriched properties or staged properties. And importantly, when you include those in your RFI responses, you can now get analytics on the interaction with those links that you provide by the recipients of the RFI response. Similarly, in campaign enrichment, you can utilize Guru's advanced features to support your outbound campaigns, proactive campaigns, whether they're print, social media, email campaigns, whether they're targeted at specific industries. Guru contains the features now to support those campaigns and provide you analytics on your results. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll show you a couple of examples of these specific features within Guru. Give me 1 second to set it up. Okay, so what you see now is the main landing page of one of our clients, Select Florida. This is the state economic development organization for Florida. And the reason I'm starting here is to show you how Guru is accessed from a client's website. So I'm going to turn to my left here to use my big screen, and I'm going to come to this main menu at the top of the screen. I'm going to select Buildings and Site Search. And with one click from the landing page, my browser opens a new tab, and I see our technology on the screen. Now I'm
And
looking.
Ron, you will have to share your share to the other tab.
Will do. Yeah. So I'm going to show you the new tab I just opened. Apologies for that. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this is the tab that just opened. Because it opened in a new tab, I had to share again. No worries. So when a user is on a client's website, they click on a link that the client decides. Could be sites and buildings, available properties, analytical tools, whatever clients choose. The browser opens to a new tab, and the client sees our application configured with the client's branding. So you see the Select Florida logo, Select Florida color scheme, Select Florida header links. Those are active links at the top of the page. Okay, now I'm going to actually switch to another tab because I want to show you the first of our workflow examples. Give me 1 second. Okay, so now you're looking at an installation of our Guru technology for Metro Atlanta. And the first of our workflow examples is property enrichment. So imagine I'm a business or a site selector. I've come to this installation of Guru on the client's website. I'm interested in learning more about properties. I have lots of options for filtering, searching, and finding properties that interest me. But what do people do when they find a property in the listing panel on the left that interests them, whether searching on the map, searching in the listing panel, or using filters? Well, to learn more, they're going to click on the thumbnail. So that's what I'm going to do. If I'm interested in learning more about the Covington Logistics Park, the second property on the list, I'll go ahead and click on the thumbnail. Now, when I do, take a look at what happens on the screen. On the left side of the screen, the listing panel clears and I get the detailed information for this property, all of the listing information that's relevant. But take a look at what's happening on the map. The software automatically swapped out the street map for a satellite image, automatically loaded a 3D virtual building that doesn't actually exist in real life, automatically turned on 3D and tilted the surface so that it's obvious to the user that they're in 3D, and then automatically made it clear that there is CSX rail and high voltage power available. Now remember, I didn't do any of that. All I did is what people are going to do. I clicked on the property to learn more. So, how did the software know to present this full use case to me, showcasing a 3D virtual building and some very important specific assets? In this case, rail access and high voltage power. Well, the answer is property enrichment. This is the package of features we provide for you to allow you to stage your properties. One click, and the user sees exactly what you want them to see for that property. They don't have to know how to turn on 3D. They don't have to draw buildings. They don't have to know that there's rail and power available. All they do is click on the property to learn more. They see the use case that you've designed specifically for them to see. Now, all of the layers in this app are interactive. That means I can click on anything and find out more. So I click on our virtual building. I can see, okay, it's a 500,000 square foot distribution center, and I can even see the dimensions of the building. Similarly, I can click on those high voltage and rail layers as well. And I can see, okay, Georgia Power owns 115 kV overhead line available right on site. A big plus, obviously, for an industrial property and something you would like users to understand. Well, with property enrichment, you configure the property to showcase the use case you have in mind. So in this example, I'm a business person, a site selector. I come to the application on the client's website. I click on the property to learn more. I see that fully enriched property, showcasing the use case for me. So now let's talk about the second example of how Guru supports your workflows, and that's for RFI response. So imagine you get an RFI in, and it's for an industry and a business that you think makes sense for your community, and you're interested in following up on it. You read the RFI carefully. Well, you can come into Guru, take advantage of property enrichment, and configure a use case, stage a use case exactly like you're seeing on the screen here that matches the needs of that particular RFI or the requirements of that particular company. But how do you know to select this property? Well, we are adding to Guru a feature called suitability analysis that will allow you to select the variables and to assign weightings, and then let Guru tell you, ranked from 1 to n, which properties are the best fit for that RFI. So you've got your RFI in, you use suitability analysis to identify your best properties. You then use property enrichment to stage the property. Now you can use additional features in Guru to work with your colleagues and to apply to that RFI and include this particular staged property. Guru contains a proposal manager feature allowing you to work with colleagues and collaborate, whether those colleagues are in your organization, around your region, outside of your organization, doesn't matter. You can collaborate with those colleagues to develop your RFI response after selecting the property that fits best using suitability analysis, and then you can stage the property using property enrichment as you see here. So now you've got your property staged. You want to bring this property to life in your RFI response. You don't want to just send over a PDF with a bunch of text and a couple of images. You want the user to be able to engage with the property. You want your recipient of that RFI to see that you're going the extra mile and making sure that your submission suits their needs. Well, Guru allows you the tools to do that. You simply come to the share button on the left side of the screen. That button is always there. When you click on share, you have the option now to copy a tiny URL. You don't have to copy that gigantic monstrosity up at the top of the browser. So you hit copy. Now you take that URL and you drop it into your PDF response. It creates a hyperlink in your PDF, and now your business that you are responding to, when they're reading your PDF reply, can click on that hyperlink, and when they do, their browser will open exactly to the view that you see on the screen here. So this allows you to bring your submission to life, invite your user or your recipient to click through, see the use case for the property that you've provided on the screen, and instantly have access to all of the data in Guru that supports your community submission. Not only that, Guru now includes analytics that allow you to see clicks and related data for that link that you included in your RFI. So you can see when the users or when the recipients clicked on the link, how many individuals clicked, how many clicks were unique individuals versus the same person multiple times, how many clicks were from bots versus individuals. You can see where those clicks came from, really lots of useful data. So now you can see very clearly how much engagement you are getting when you include that link in your RFI response. So all of these features come together to create an entire workflow supporting your RFI response and your submissions for RFPs as well. Okay, let's pause for a second and let's move now to the third workflow. So we've talked about property enrichment, which is what you see on the screen here, the ability to stage a property for a use case. We've talked about how additional features combine with property enrichment to enable you to bring to life your RFI submissions. Well, let's talk about how some of those features work in concert to support your outbound campaigns through what we call campaign enrichment. So you have, let's say, a series of or a set of target industries that you want to reach out to. Maybe you've got 3. Well, with Guru, you can create templates for each of those target industries, showing each target industry's variables that matter to them in site selection, and you can even assign weightings to those variables. You can save those as templates, one for each of your 3 target industries. Then you can use those templates to identify the properties in your property inventory that are the best fit for those target industries. Now that you've got those properties identified, you can use property enrichment, as you see here on the screen, to stage those properties with assets that fit those target industries. Could be 3D buildings, could be local infrastructure, could be demographic data, could be workforce data from Lightcast. Simply include it in your property enrichment when you stage the property. Now you can take advantage of that tiny URL feature through the sharing button, copy that tiny URL, include it in your outbound campaigns. These could be social media campaigns, outbound email campaigns. We have clients who are including it in print campaigns. And when a user clicks on that link or clicks on a QR code reflecting the link, the browser is going to open to this exact same view. So you can stage properties for your target sectors and your target companies, reach out to them proactively, include links to these stage properties, and with our analytics, you can now see the level of engagement you're getting from your campaigns and get real feedback on the success of those outbound campaigns. Okay, so let me show you 1 or 2 more things now. I'm going to hit the back button. And when I do, you'll notice the software undoes all of the 3D. So just as I did not have to know how to turn on 3D and open 3D buildings and add layers, similarly, I don't have to know how to turn it off. I just hit the back button. The software undoes it all for me. So let's talk about the 4-digit data that's now included for you, the 4-digit Lightcast data that's included for you in Guru. This is something that we're excited about as we've tightened our partnership. And with our customers that are Lightcast customers as well as GIS WebTech customers, we are able to offer 4-digit data at no additional charge. And that data is available to you, that 4-digit Lightcast data is available to you 2 ways in Guru. First, you can work on the map using that data. And second, you can get reports using that data. Let's take a look at each. You'll notice on the map that there's a simple, clean, organized user interface here. 1 click, and I have access to workforce data. So I've clicked on workforce, and now I see on the left occupational code data, and on the right, industry code data. I'm going to go ahead and select manufacturing. Now I have opportunities to look at 4-digit data for manufacturing. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to select, let's go with pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing. I'll go ahead and select that, hit map. And when I do, I see the Lightcast workforce data at the county level. I'll select hide properties at the top of the screen. That will turn the property clusters off, and I can now work with this data. So when I click on this on the shape that I'm interested in this case, Gwinnett County, I see there are 1,078 pharmaceutical manufacturing employees in that county, and their average annual wage is about $110,000. Now, I can get this data by zooming out at the state level. I can get it by zooming in at the zip code level. Lots of flexibility there. So you have the ability to look at Lightcast data, work with it on the map, export this map view for use in written documents, proposals, for example. All that's very simple and easy to do. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, this sharing button is always here. So I can copy a link to this view and include it in an RFI, an outbound campaign, or even just an email to a prospect. And one click, they're going to see exactly what you see here. So lots of opportunities to work on the map and use Lightcast data in your analysis on the map. I'm going to hit clear map now. That's going to close that layer. And I'm going to return the properties to the screen. And now let's take a look at the 4 ways you can get Lightcast data in the form of reports from Guru, as well as Azure reports. First is around a property. So I'll click on the third property on the list, the battery. When I do, in this case, there is no 3D building assigned. It's already an urban area by the ballpark here in Atlanta. The software simply zooms to the site. And on the left, I get the property details. I won't go through those. At the top of the left-hand panel, you'll see 3 options: details, analysis, and what's nearby. By the way, this is the only app that includes what's nearby. When I select analysis, now I can get data in the form of reports around this location that interests me within drive times, trucking times, walking times, distances as well as times, and rings, which are radiuses, radii. I'll select drive time. Suppose I want to look at workforce within reasonable commute times. I'll select 30, 45, and 60 minutes. I can customize my analysis for time of day, day of the week, and direction of travel. When I hit get reports, generate reports, now the software is going to take those very precise instructions, do the calculations that I've indicated, and show me on the map drive time boundaries of 30, 45, and 60 minutes for Monday morning driving inbound to this location. And as instructed in the panel, I simply scroll down to see the available reports. So I can get 2-digit and 4-digit Lightcast reports from within these drive time boundaries. For example, if I select industry code, I can see now all 4-digit industry codes listed here, and I can get the data in Excel or PDF format, whichever is most convenient for me. Excel, obviously, a little more workable if I want to work with the data. Similarly, I have access to about 50 Esri demographic reports, including lots of business and economic data, not just traditional census data. So this is the first way to get data, and that's through looking at a property. Well, what if I want to do a similar analysis, but it's not a listed property? There's a location that I'm interested in looking at this kind of data for, but it's not listed in the listing panel because the property is not for sale or for lease. No worries. I'll simply come up to analysis at the top of the screen, select pin, drop a pin, and you'll see I have access to those same tools on the left. So I can do the same analysis. Well, what if I want to get data for a neighborhood or an area within Atlanta that doesn't correspond to a city or a county? It's not going to correspond to a drive time or a walking time. No worries. I simply select that area tool. Now I can draw my shape that interests me. Maybe it's this part of town here. Whatever shape I draw, I will have access to those same reports for data from within that shape that I've drawn on the map. Same Lightcast data reports, same Esri reports. Okay, so you can get data around a property. You can drop a pin. You can draw a shape on the map. Well, what if you just want to get data for a city, a county, a region, a state? Just select the Communities tab, and now you have the ability to get data for any of those categories. You can see in this case, there's the region, which is the metro area. I can select a county. I can select a city within the metro area. In any case, I always have the option to select reports. The software will zoom to the community I've selected, in this case, Barrow County, and those same reports are available. Okay, so 4 ways to get a report or a set of reports around a property, from a dropped pin, from an area I draw on the map, or from a community, city, county, region, state. Okay, let me pause and I'm going to stop sharing. We'll go back to our general discussion. Thank you very much for that, Nathan.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. That's amazing. Really cool to see what that tool can do and all the different ways you can start to dive into a given region and look at how it relates to the properties and see all that data. Um, so I'm going to go through now just really quickly and show a couple ways that Lightcast data works alongside the Guru tool. Um, I know a lot of you are probably already utilizing the Lightcast data, so you're already familiar with this. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I want to show just a few quick use cases. And then what we'll do is we'll open it up to questions, any questions for me here at Lightcast or for Ron at GIS WebTech. We can really start to dive in here and hopefully answer all the questions you have. Um, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go ahead and share my developer screen. Um, and as I'm going through this, you may already be familiar with this. One thing I'll also mention is we also have our Gazelle platform, which also works very well alongside GIS WebTech. Once you have, those properties identified in your region that are, potentially available, being able to go out, use those target industries that Ron mentioned, and actually start searching for those individual companies and get very targeted with your outreach. So you're reaching out to the right people at the right companies and trying to get them to come to your area. The developer tool can really help you show what data you want to show for your region. Once you have those areas identified, once you have those properties identified, maybe you're already in conversation with a company. What is that information you're showing them to convince them to move to your area? Like Ron mentioned, you can start to dive into the workforce data and the industry data and the GIS tool by looking at that 4-digit Lightcast industry and occupation information. But maybe you want to take a deeper dive into that workforce data. And so let's say, for example, maybe we're looking at, maybe the industry we're looking at is aircraft manufacturing. We can come in and say, I want to understand what does the aircraft manufacturing look like? And we'll use that Atlanta MSA as an example. That was the same MSA that Ron was looking at there. What does it currently look like in my region? And what are the necessary occupations I need to support this business? We can run the staffing pattern here to see all of the different occupations currently in the Atlanta MSA that are employed in this industry. We can see what the growth has looked like in this industry over time. We can see those things like typical entry level education, work experience, or typical on the job training to help us see how does our current workforce align? Do we have the people we need to support this business? And so maybe we want to take the top oh so many occupations here. I'll just kind of select some of these and do a deeper analysis into what this looks like overall in our area. Because right here, we only see the occupations employed in the aircraft manufacturing industry. If I jump to the occupation table, we can see all of the jobs in these occupations in our region. And so we can see obviously significantly higher job numbers, but we can also start to dive into some different metrics here, like resident workers and net commuters. How many people do we have actually living in our region versus working here? So we can see with a few of these occupations, we actually have people commuting out for work. Like with this aerospace engineers, we have negative 126 net commuters. Potentially, if we bring a new business into our region, maybe to one of these properties we were looking at, we can keep these people working in region instead of having to commute out for work. We can also look at some different things like earnings to try to understand what the earnings are going to look like in the region and help the companies understand what their cost of doing business is going to be. Obviously, we also have the demographic information. So if you're trying to understand what does how many people are working in your different cohorts, your different demographic cohorts in your region, we can start to dive into that as well. And this can be a really valuable way if you're looking at upskilling your region and trying to diversify some of your higher paying occupations or your occupations with better careers. We can use this from the workforce perspective to figure out how can we improve our workforce in the area. There's obviously some other ways we can utilize this tool to see, for instance, what is the impact of bringing in this company? Um, with the GIS tool, we have that location identified, but what would it actually look like if we were to bring an aircraft manufacturing company into our area? Well, we can obviously use the impact scenario here and say, let's say we added 200 jobs to the aircraft manufacturing industry. Well, that's actually going to create a total of 752 jobs throughout our community. We can see It's obviously going to increase the earnings, but it's going to increase it by over 72 million in our region. And we can start to dive into the breakout here and see where are these jobs actually being added. You know, if we hit this change in jobs, we can see there's our initial 200 jobs we're adding, but we're also adding jobs into the supply chain in the Atlanta MSA for this industry. We're also getting these induced jobs, so all the other jobs being added into the economy based on these first three categories. So teachers, healthcare workers, fast food workers, different things like that. And you can start to dive into that here, see what industries or occupations these jobs are being added into. And you can get the detailed view as well. So you have the earnings, sales, or jobs detail, where this will break it down to the 6 digit level. And we can see what 6 digit industry these jobs are being added into, or what dollar amount of sales or earnings are being added at the 6 digit level. Um, Another thing I wanted to show really quickly here as well is being able to understand what does the supply chain look like for this industry in my region. So if we go to the industry purchases here, we can look up aircraft manufacturing in Atlanta, and this is going to give us a full view of the purchases being made by the aircraft manufacturing industry and help us see, are these purchases being made in region or are they being met by imports? Now, I think this is a really cool report that works very well with Guru because we can start to look at where do we have supply chain gaps? Where is there leakage in our area? And we can see for the aircraft manufacturing industry here, some of our top industries, like other aircraft parts and auxiliary equipment manufacturing, we have some purchases being made in region, but realistically, most of these purchases are being met by imports. So we can look at A, how can we fill this supply chain gap? Is this another industry we could be targeting to attract to our region? Or potentially, could we work with a current business in our area to expand their processes to help fill the supply chain gap? Um, so really popular like data set here and really powerful for the business attraction, business retention, expansion side of being able to see how do we keep our money flowing within our region instead of having that money leave the area. One last report I want to show really quickly here is the regional comparison reports. Once we've started to identify some of this workforce and demographic data, and once we've identified the property through Guru, maybe we want to be able to show what makes our area special. If you're trying to attract a business, there's a very, very real possibility they're also considering other areas. And so you need to be able to see what are the strengths of my region, or where are the potential opportunities? Maybe where are we falling behind other areas? And so we can use this regional comparison report to do direct comparisons, whether you know who you're competing against for this business, or maybe you don't and you just want to show how you compare to maybe some of your peer regions or the national average. You can see I've got some other regions here. I've got the Atlanta MSA, Fulton County, Georgia. But then I also pulled in the Orlando MSA and the Charlotte, North Carolina MSA. And then I'm also pulling in the nation here so we can see that national comparison. We have the aircraft manufacturing industry. You could also potentially pull in, you know, maybe some of the industries in their supply chain that we just saw, where if you wanted to pull in like the other aircraft, like engine and engine parts manufacturing, you could start to see what do some of these industries within the supply chain look like, and how does that compare against some of these other regions. And then obviously we looked at the staffing pattern at the beginning and we identified some of those occupations that are necessary for the aircraft manufacturing industry. We can also do that comparison here, pull in those occupations and see how do these compare against these different regions. And so I've got a couple individual occupations, but I've also pulled in a group of aerospace occupations. I created this group earlier. It's just like the top 8 or top 10 occupations employed in the aerospace or the aircraft manufacturing industry in Atlanta. Coming down here, obviously we can start to select some of the data points we want to compare across these regions, like cost of living, household income, crime, occupation or industry growth, or employment concentration. or you can hit the custom data selection to get that full list of data sets that you can start to compare. And we can see population, jobs, like I mentioned, the cost of living, mean commute time. So many different data sets we can start to look at to show what makes our region special or potentially where are there opportunities for us to improve. In this report, you may already be familiar with it, is going to give us this side by side view where we can see all these regions side by side and start to see how they compare to each other. How is our overall population growth? In the Atlanta MSA, we've seen 6% population growth, which is quite a bit higher than the 3% at the national average. But we're actually falling a little bit behind Charlotte and Orlando here. The cost of living, though, we can see the cost of living, we're at 96.2. So decent amount lower than that national average of 100 and lower than both of these other regions as well. This is all information that businesses love to see. They're always looking to understand things like the unemployment rate, which we can see down here is 3.9% in the region. They're wanting to see things like what is the cost of doing business going to be? And so oftentimes we'll want to see, what do the industry earnings look like across these different regions? And coming down here, we can see, for instance, the aircraft engine and engine parts manufacturing, probably going to be, a pretty big supplier of the aircraft manufacturing industry. And we can see this is an industry that already exists in the Atlanta MSA with just over 1,000 jobs in 2023. So we can start to compare this against some of the other regions and say, all right, well, in Charlotte and in Orlando, these are not really established industries yet. And so that could be an advantage for us in Atlanta is we already have an established supply chain and some established businesses. Same thing on the occupation side. We can start to dive into what occupations do we have in our region and are they growing? So, for instance, with the software developers, we've seen pretty significant growth, but we're actually, again, falling a little bit behind the national average and some of these peer regions I'm looking at. And on the miscellaneous assemblers and fabricators, we actually saw a slight decrease in jobs in this industry. And we're a little bit below the national average in terms of concentration with this occupation. So this is kind of just, like I said, I wanted to show a quick example of how you can start to dive into the workforce and then your region to see how do these industries fit and how does this work alongside the Guru tool. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here and let's open it up to questions. Um, I've seen a few questions already come in around, when do we get access to this or, how does this work? So the Guru tool is still a separate subscription. We've just expanded our partnership with GIS WebTech to allow you to access Lightcast data through their platform. And so if you do subscribe to the GIS WebTech tool, the Guru tool, you're going to essentially have an advantage there where you're going to get more access to Lightcast data there than what was previously possible. And so with this, you'll see on the screen here, if you're interested in learning more about GIS WebTech, you can scan that little QR code on the right. You'll also see Kathy Becker's email down at the bottom. Kathy is amazing, one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. And she would love to chat with you more about what this all looks like, what does a GIS WebTech like subscription look like, and help you get started there. So with that, please drop any questions you have in the chat. I saw a couple come in, and it looks like Ron, maybe you answered them in the chat, but do you want to chat through any of these questions you got here?
Yeah, while you were talking, I did answer a few, but I think it makes sense to go through them all because some people may not have been reading the chat. So let's, if you don't mind, Nathan, we'll just jump through them top to bottom.
Perfect.
So
That works.
first,
That works.
when will this be available? Apologies, Mindy, I'm not quite sure when you asked that. If it was when I was talking, almost everything I showed you, everything I showed you is available today. I did mention one feature that is not yet out, and that is the site suitability analysis. That will allow you to select variables, assign weightings, and then use the software to match properties to specific projects you're working on in an objective and analytical way. That's in development. It's going to be out in some number of months. In other words, not years, but it's not weeks either. early next year or late this year, something like that. So call it the end of the year, roughly sometime like that. Everything else we talked about and Nathan talked about is available today.
So, next question we have here from Michael is, do I have to draw or send you 3D buildings for Guru?
Right. And I put in the chat an answer. The answer is no. We include all that for you. So please don't feel like you need to become a GIS whiz. You don't. You don't need to go track down 3D buildings from an architect or an engineer, which they can produce. You don't need to do any of that. We provide a full suite of them, 26 in the app for you right out of the box. And that list grows constantly because clients say to us, I really would like to see this kind of building. If you have one that you want to see that we don't have that's in that list of 26, we'll build it for you for free. Why? Because other clients are going to want it too. So those are all provided.
Perfect. And then um, Kathy asked, if I have a license to Guru, can I include detailed Lightcast data in my RFI responses?
And this question came in, Nathan. This is a great question because it's a good example of the complementary nature of the technologies that came in when you were showing the detailed analysis the developer allows you to do. Very detailed stuff in continuing on with the Atlanta example that I used. So the question is, okay, if you're a developer and you're doing all that, can you then include that data in your RFR response or Guru? The answer is absolutely. In fact, there's two or three different ways you can do it. I won't get into it in today's discussion. We'll be happy to talk about that offline.
Perfect. And then Vicky asked, "Do you have a Guru license to utilize to utilize this?" Yeah, so Vicky, that's what we just went over this a little bit, but yeah, you do have to have a Guru license to be able to access the GIS WebTech tool. This is just like what we're showing today is the expanded partnership between GIS WebTech and Lightcast. Um, Next question there is there an option for a trial period for your Guru tool?
Um, Reach out to me. My email, you're probably able to guess it. You see Kathy's on the screen, Kathy at giswebtech.com. Mine is Ron at giswebtech.com. Not very difficult to figure out. Reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to set up a time to discuss it. We have done things like that in the past. Depends on your circumstances, but yeah, love to talk about it.
Michael asked, could you review the tiny URL again?
Sure. Um, I will simply talk about it rather than sharing screens again because it's so simple. All you do is you get something you like on the screen. It could be a staged property, including a 3D building. It could be a heat map of some interesting data, like 4-digit Lightcast occupational code data. And if you want to share that view on the screen, whatever it is, all you have to do is 2 clicks. Click on the share button, click on copy the tiny URL. Once you've done that, now you can paste that tiny URL anywhere you want. Could be in an email that you're sending out to a prospect. Could be in an email that you're sending to a colleague when you're working on a project together and you want to see some interesting analysis. It could be an RFP response or a campaign outreach, as we talked about. You can drop that tiny URL anywhere you like. And once you do, whoever the recipient is, if they click on it, their browser will open to the exact same view that you've copied. So what this means is you can direct people with 1 click to anything you want within Guru. You don't have to send them to a landing page and then give them a bunch of typed instructions on click here and drag there and click here and pull this menu down and so on. None of that. Just simply copy what you like, send them the link, 1 click, and they see what you want them to see.
Perfect. I've got a few more questions here for you. So let's say a client does purchase Guru. This is a publicly facing tool. How do they get it on their website? What does the implementation look like?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So Guru has two purposes, has two audiences. The first purpose, and still the primary purpose, is for it to be public facing on your website for businesses and site selectors who come to your website. Okay, that's still the primary purpose. But increasingly, there are features designed for your use that are behind the login. So things like the analytics we mentioned, they're behind the login. The public doesn't see that. Only you see that. Things like the proposal manager, that is behind the login for you to work on your proposals collaboratively with your partners around the region or the area you work in. So those features are behind the login. Only you and your team has access to those features. The public facing side of Guru is what we have designed for businesses and site selectors who come to your website. We configure the app working with you. It's super simple. All we need from you is your logo. Basically, that's it. Okay. So, and if you don't have that, no problem. We can probably find it on the web in 30 seconds anyway. Once we have that information, We'll configure the app to meet your color scheme, your other branding components. We'll include the header links from your website. We'll then provide a URL for Guru to you and your web developer. And you will instruct your web developer what and where to point to. So the web developer will go into your website using the link that you decide will point to Guru. And that link, as I showed you when we talked initially, using the Select Florida example, usually it's one click from the home from the client's homepage. Now you'll notice I didn't use the word embed. Guru can be embedded within a page on your website. We discourage this. We have some clients who do it, but we discourage it. Why do we discourage it? Because it's a visual technology. As you saw today, the visual impact is a big part of the user experience. And we find that the visual impact and the user experience are optimized when all of the real estate of the browser is dedicated to Guru. That's why we recommend linking and having your browser open a new tab with Guru in it rather than embedding Guru in a web page within your browser.
Hmm, awesome. We got another question here. Can we create custom legislative districts in the mapping feature?
If that, I believe that is directed to us, to Guru. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely you can. In fact, many of our clients have done this. It's kind of a neat function. You can actually create custom shapes in the form of layers, can be legislative districts, can be other, for example, land use planning districts, special incentive areas. Clients commonly create these kinds of shapes and they add them to Guru as layers. But what's really neat is you can then use those layers to filter properties. I'll give you a specific real life example. The state of Oklahoma is a client of ours. They have some state level incentives. They don't cover the whole state, they're in specific regions of the state. They've created a layer, added it to Guru. And now, when they get a business reaching out to them saying, hey, I'm interested in those state incentives, with just a couple of clicks and a couple of seconds, they can use the layer to filter the properties. In other words, you don't have to look on the map, zooming in and out at these shapes on the map to try and figure out which properties are inside the shape. A couple of clicks, you use the filter, you use the shape itself as a filter, and the software will list for you all the properties that are inside those shapes. So it makes it super simple to find properties within specific incentive zones, within legislative districts, to use your example. Lots of clients have done that kind of thing.
Awesome. Um, for the Guru clients, what kind of manual work is there on their end? Do they have to upload data into the tool or like to be able to run the analysis? What does that look like?
Yeah, another great question. So we provide real-time access to the entire Esri demographic data set. Don't need to do anything with that. It's always the latest available because it's real-time access. Similarly, we provide access through Lightcast API to their data, which is the best workforce data available. So that's all provided for you. We provide a huge set of data in the form of layers for you right out of the box, 45 or 50 standard layers, everything from high voltage power lines and high pressure gas lines to intermodal facilities, broadband, lots of other good stuff. You can add additional local layers, as we mentioned, parcels, zoning, land use planning, hiking and biking trails, parks and recreation. These are all very common local layers that you can add from local GIS departments with just a few clicks. There is one data set in Guru that we don't provide, that we actually receive, and that is the property data. Okay, so the property data doesn't come with Guru. It gets into Guru one of three ways, and you can mix and match these ways. First, you can enter and maintain it yourself. Now, for many big regional organizations, that's not realistic, but we have a lot of smaller rural clients who simply enter their own data. We also have some big organizations that cover larger areas that focus only on a small number of properties, so they manage them themselves, big industrial sites only, for example. So, first way is you can enter and maintain the property data. Second is you can create password protected accounts for third parties you work with to enter and maintain property data. Could be brokers, could be other local economic developers. For example, the state of Alabama is a client. They have something like 100 accounts created, there's no limit, for 100 local economic developers to enter and maintain their industrial sites. So that's a second option, working with partners to enter and maintain data. And then third, you can license the property data. We have probably 40% of our clients license the property data. That's growing in popularity as the data quality gets better and the cost comes down. And we can do this through local MLSs. We have property data partnerships around the country, literally dozens of them. And these partnerships guarantee our clients the lowest rates available. So those are good options as well.
Awesome. All right, I've got one more quick question for you, and it's if somebody wanted to get pricing to for Guru, what would they need to do?
Simple enough. Just contact me or Kathy. Again, Ron at giswebtech.com or Kathy with a C at giswebtech.com. And we'll go from there. We'd love to learn more about your situation, about your community, learn a little bit about your strategy, have a quick discussion, and it's pretty easy then for us to work out pricing for you. One of the things I should mention is we often get this question, Nathan, which is, oh, software's so advanced, got such cutting edge features, must be expensive, right? It's actually usually cheaper than the older technologies. And the reason that may be a little counterintuitive, but the reason is really the reason that software prices tend to come down over time and not go up. And that's that the latest technologies built with the latest tools are cheaper and easier to build and a lot cheaper to maintain. So I mentioned earlier that we replaced our first app with Guru 2 years ago. We don't keep old apps around by bolting on features because not only is that worse for clients in terms of performance and clutter, it's actually worse for us because it means higher maintenance costs. So we're typically very competitive on the fees, typically lower priced than the older technologies.
Awesome. All right. Well, Ron, I really appreciate you joining us today and chatting through this. To everyone here, we really appreciate you joining and listening and interacting with us, giving us some good questions today. If you need anything from us or if you're interested in accessing the GIS WebTech tool, please reach out. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to anybody on the GIS WebTech team. We'd be happy to get you connected. And hopefully we can continue to grow this partnership in the future. But I appreciate your time, Ron, and I appreciate everyone joining.
And on behalf of the GIS WebTech team, I want to say thank you to Nathan and to Lightcast. They're great partners to work with, and we're excited to continue the partnership.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron, and have a great day, everyone.